are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to Trust and Estates Weekly. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I'm here every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to talk about estate planning and trust and estate administration for professionals like me, who I'm a professional fiduciary, and like my guest, Deric Keller, but also for your own information so that you can communicate better with the various advisors with whom you're dealing when you're doing your estate plan and or administrating an estate. So without further ado, I want to get right to my guest, Deric Keller. Deric is a veteran buddy of mine. You can see the flag behind his head and the various veteran paraphernalia that is so you can see the same thing. I got my Navy logo right there. And Deric and I are part of a group of businessmen, all of whom are military veterans who work together to help each other. And Deric is very involved with businesses, especially with helping business owners figure out what they're going to do with the business. Either when they want to retire or, God forbid, when they die. So he's going to talk to us about exit planning for businesses. And I think this is a topic that unfortunately gets overlooked too often in estate planning. And so, somebody passes away and now this business is kind of hanging out there. And, a lot of times the heirs have no knowledge of the business, no interest in being involved in it. So now what's going to happen? So Deric, so happy to have you on the show and sharing your expertise with us.
No, yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's always exciting to meet up with, other veterans like we do every Tuesday, every what, first or third Tuesday? I can't remember.
First Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, every first Tuesday of the month. But then also, I feel like we always speak the same language anyway, just being veterans and operating in a certain way. I always love to do business and speak with veterans outside of here as well. So it's great.
So before we get into the actual topic of the show, a lot of people are curious and well, first of all, we're so lucky to have been able to serve at a time when our fellow citizens were so supportive of the military. And just so for the folks who are watching and interested, just share just a little bit about your military background. So that, where did you serve? What did you do? That kind of thing, just so they can get a flavor of it and then see they'll be able to contrast that with what you're doing now and how, many veterans go on to success in civilian life.
Yeah, it's so like I served in the Marine Corps from 1999 to the end of 2003. So inside of that, we had, we had a lot of different things happen in Afghanistan. We had the 9/11 thing happen. We had, we went over to Iraq. It was pretty intense time to serve, but also a great time to serve, like you said, with the support that we did have. There was a lot of support, but there was also some not so supportive people, right? We had people, protesting funerals and things like that, but nowhere near the extent of death, destruction, and people that were against the war as Vietnam and world wars and things like that. So it was pretty cool to serve at that time. But I was in the infantry. When I first got out into the fleet, I was with 3/8 CAT platoon, which is a combined anti-armor platoon. So we're part of a weapons company that would go out and we'd be on Humvees, right? I ended up dislocating my shoulder when we were getting ready to deploy, and the surgeon wouldn't let me get on the plane, fear of blood clots, all that. So I ended up staying back And by staying back, they ended up moving me over to another platoon over with scouts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I ended up deploying to Iraq with. We led the charge from bottom to top. There was nobody in front of us, so it was kind of crazy to think about. You know, we used to joke around while we were over there. It's a little military humor, so don't be offended, but it's we were worm on a hook, right? We felt like we were bait because we were in thin-skinned Humvees, right? And we're going out there, and we're miles ahead of the tanks and forward reconnaissance, and it seemed like, you know, we'd get in these big firefights, and then the tanks had come up, and it was crazy. There was a point in time where we got in a big firefight that was us against a bunch of armored vehicles, and it was just us. We'd outran our supply lines. We didn't have any extra, really anything. So we fought off this little platoon of BMPs and old T-55 and T-62s tanks.
Wow.
So it was a little different experience, but ultimately I ended up, you know, growing and learning from that, and carrying a lot of them lessons with me into coaching businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And business myself. The three big things that I brought with me from the military into coaching and into running businesses is decision velocity. That's number one, decision velocity. And where you get that is from reps, right? They say that the definition of luck is opportunity meets preparation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look at luck as that plus, you know, I guess the opportunity meets preparation is all of your reps that you have, all the things that you've done to prepare yourself for the situation, to be able to recognize and operate in a certain way. So I remember, you know, in boot camp, staring at a wall with my M16 and dry firing a rifle into the wall for I think it was a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, before we were ever allowed to put ammo in it, right? And
wow.
It was great because guys that had never shot a day in their life stepped down onto the rifle range and were putting bullets on paper at 500 yards. So
Wow.
it's with open iron sights, right? It's all in the muscle memory, all in the reps, all in preparation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always talk to a lot of my clients about, what are you doing to prepare to make these decisions, to be able to operate and make these decisions, and making decisions fast is huge in business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have to be able to capture the moment. We have to be able to move. We have to be able to operate. And then it's not always the right decision, just like in combat, right?
Right.
So the idea is from there is to own your decision and make course corrections, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're in combat, you don't have time to blame anybody or point any fingers, because you might shot off, right? So, but in business, it's very similar, right? When you start blaming and pointing fingers, you're on the road down. You're on the road to hurting yourself, hurting your credibility, hurting your business's credibility, and destroying the culture of your business. Mm-hmm. So own and then course correct. So own the decision, own, hey, I made this decision. Okay.
Right.
Here's where we are. There's nothing I could do to change that. Let's move forward. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start to operate in a different way. Let's move. Let's make another decision and start to make different moves. And then, like I said, that affects culture, which is the third thing, right? So third thing inside of the military is culture and values, right? Mm-hmm. The reason why I was attracted to the Marine Corps is because of who they are, the way that they operate, the reputation that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the culture and the way that it is in the Marine Corps, where this comes up a lot for me is in recruiting. I have a lot of businesses out there who go out and try to say that they're recruiting, but they jump on Indeed, right? Mm-hmm. And they jump on whatever other ZipRecruiter or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. They're going out and trying to find these people and do these things through all this slop of applications of people who are either disgruntled employees, been fired employees, like every once in a while you can reach into some pig slop and pull out an apple, but I mean, ultimately it's mostly slop.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of recruiting like the Marine Corps. I think of building this culture and having these values that attract the right people,
Mm-hmm.
first of all. And then where are you going to get people? You're going to the places where you want the people, right? Like, hey, this is my ideal employee. This is who I want. Where does that person hang out? What does that person do? Marine Corps goes to colleges, high schools, different recruit or hiring events, all these different things, but they're going to the place where their ideal people are going to be. And then standing out in the crowd, presenting themselves as, usually they're in some sort of a dress uniform and them type of things, and really looking sharp and buttoned up. And they're going to attract the people who want that for themselves.
Right. For sure. I used to go to my daughter's high school career day. And I usually went as either as a representative of the Navy or my current guys, as a professional fiduciary. And when I would do the ones with the military, the Marine Corps representative, he was always there, dress uniform, looking sharp, standing tall. And I mean, even compared to me, and I consider myself to be a pretty, squared away guy when it comes to military stuff, but cannot hold a candle to the Marine Corps. And it was interesting to watch the students because most of them asked questions from the Marine Corps representative, even if they were interested in other service branches, right? And this was Beverly Hills High School. This is very, high school in a very wealthy community, right? So, right. The students who were there who were interested in potentially considering a military career, they were in that room because they were seriously considering a military career. And then they see that Marine Corps guy and they say, I'm serious about the military. I want to be serious about the guy who's serious about the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how people will push culture and say that it's this big hoax and this big thing that just doesn't really do anything. You just gotta push on your people and this, that, and the other thing, and they don't realize that culture is what builds these companies, from these giant companies, these big conglomerates that they want to be like. They had a culture at some point that built them to where they are.
Yeah, for sure. So, not to be, cavalier, but, your ability as a young Marine to get out of that firefight alive, right, shows that you really know something about exit strategies, right?
Yeah.
I don't think exiting any business is quite as tough as getting out of that firefight. But so let's because there's so much we can talk about.
Right.
And in businesses and making them work and thrive, et cetera. Let's focus now on business exit strategizing. When you approach a client and you see that that's a need, how do you address it? What are the issues that you bring to the attention of the owners? How do you broach that? Because I can imagine I know for myself, if someone came to me right now and said, so have you planned for how to exit your business? I'm like, not ready for that yet. Right. I'm getting my practice started. Can't even wrap my head around, thinking about how do I get out of this? I'm too busy, being in it. So
right.
Talk about some of those issues, so that the people watching can get a sense of what do I do in this arena.
So the funny thing is, Kevin, is I'm glad that you said what you said, because you're just like everyone else, right? I'm not ready for exit. I don't even know what exit looks like. I couldn't even imagine exiting my business at this point. And in reality, we don't always have control over that, right? There's death, there's dysfunction, there's disease, there's divorce, right?
Right.
There's all these different things that could could happen to our business and to us, right? Especially when we're the sole decision maker or the sole operator. Like we have to think of this as a standpoint of exit planning is just good business planning, right? So as you operate your business, you need to look at it from that lens of like, all exit planning is having a good business plan, having a good structure, having the right operating agreements, right? So having the right insurances in place to make sure that if something did happen, that you don't end up in business with an ex-wife or somebody who's a current wife or a current husband that you don't even agree with, that you've never even maybe met, or some children that I mean, we don't want to run our business like they used to run, the old kingdoms in the past where you had a 10-year-old that was king. Like that's just not the way we want to operate, right? So we want to look at our business from the structure, right? So, I mean, one of the first things that we do is we come in and we want to identify, like, hey, what are like the pinch points? What are the possible scenarios that things could come up, right? And then as soon as we identify them things, the first thing we want to do is protect, right? So we want to set up a protection to where, hey, we're not going to have any backslide or any kind of craziness that's going to happen once we have these things identified, right? And then we're looking at the different. I'm sorry, I've got this written on the wall over here, and I should just put it up here. I've got it on my keyboard as well. But
no, it's fine.
Identify, protect, build, harvest, and manage. So
Okay.
identify, protect, build, harvest, and manage is the five steps, right? So under the identify and protect, so we're looking to protect, solidify, really make sure that we have the right structure, the right operating agreements, the right things in place, right? And then we're going to look at, okay, well, where can we build from? What's the next steps in building? How do we really build this thing? Because a lot of times in business, we're just kind of playing haphazardly, and we're playing to the market and playing to what's coming at us. And we don't want to operate that way. We want to operate proactive. We want to be ahead of the game. We want to be moving in ways that our competition isn't, frankly, right? Like we want to look at where are the different avenues that we can look and build, and where can we shore up some things and really optimize some different things. How can we automate, optimize, really bring the right structure to the business? Hey, who's in maybe a seat inside of our organization that's really at their ceiling, that they can't grow anymore? Maybe as I've grown a lot of these companies that I've worked with, a lot of times you run into, like, inside of the C-suite where you have a CFO that's only grown to a $20 million company. He's only has that type of experience. And we're already banging up against 50 million. And he doesn't know the different nuances and the ways of operating to even push past that 50 million. He's doing everything he can to just maintain, right? Same with COOs, right? Like we have these different operators that come in that, hey, you know what? If we could just take this operator who we started with, he helped us found the company. He started with us, and we're real loyal to him because he's our friend. But ultimately, he could be the roadblock. And how could we elevate him to maybe a board seat or something like that, and put an operator in there that really truly knows how to operate $100 million company and see different ways of moving and different things that we can plug in. So many times our problems inside of our business and growing and structuring is the people aspect, right? One of my good friends always uses this statement, which it's the best statement that I've ever heard inside of business is that business doesn't have problems. Business has people and its problems, right? So
it's absolutely the case. I'm administrating an estate right now. I've been doing so for about 1.5 years now. And one of the assets of the estate is a real estate services company, basically. And the company generated a lot of income, but it was almost all dependent on the owner of the company, who then died.
Mm-hmm.
And now the company was left completely rudderless. It was left without its rainmaker, but also it left behind a whole bunch of clients who, could not get the kind of service that they wanted because now he was gone. And it fell to me to figure out, okay, how am I going to keep this company alive? I couldn't shut it down because, among other things, it was managing all the property owned by the estate, right? And so it was the biggest challenge in this estate, was figuring out, okay, how are we going to do this? Now, fortunately, the other people who were doing the day-to-day work happened to be outstanding. And so what they really needed was someone who could come in and basically say to them, look, you've got this, you can weather through, and then help make the decisions on, what clients needed to go, what could stay, et cetera, et cetera. But the company was perfectly fine. It was the people in the company were either the problem or the solution, is really what it came down to.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's hitting on another thing, which is the estate, right? The estate of the business, and how and the different things that this business is managing. So many people look at their business and they tangle so many things up inside of it, and they don't realize how damaging that can be to, if it ends up in probate, or if it ends up in these different lawsuits, or different scenarios where different things come up, and it really creates some chaos that they don't really need, right? So when we're looking at exit planning, we're looking at things from all of them different angles, and trying to see and make sure that they get introduced to an estate planner like yourself, so that they can make sure and build out the right structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the.
Can I have you hold that thought? We're going to do a sponsor break real quickly, and then I want to pick back up on this.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh, that's weird. Sorry about that. The video didn't launch. That was strange. So
yeah, we'll just have to go back and edit it back in.
Yeah, there we go. So, going back to our topic, and this is Trust and Estates Weekly. I'm the host, Kevin Bemmel, and my guest is Deric Keller, who works with businesses to see that they really reach their full potential. And we're talking about exit strategies for business, exit planning for businesses. So Deric was just saying that he looks for the key vulnerabilities in the business, I think, to sort of interpret what we've been talking about the last several minutes. And then from there, you take it to the professionals who can develop the kind of plans that are necessary to maintain business continuity, et cetera. So talk with us now. Yeah, talk with us some more about that.
Yeah. So basically, the way that we want to come in is the time that you have somebody come in and say that they know everything is the time that you need to cut and run and go find somebody else, right? So the way that we operate as exit planners is we want to bring the expert in for every single aspect of the exit, or in just running and scaling your business and putting the right structure in place. Mm-hmm. So what we were getting at was the fact that, like, you do trust and estates, and bringing in somebody who does trust and estates and building. And I've seen multiple people that have their trust set up in the wrong way, and really it's not protecting their business at all. Mm-hmm. And somebody told them they could just do a quick claim deed on their house and never report it to the state, and they would be okay. Well, the quick claim deed didn't mean anything because you never got it notarized, you never got it turned in. It didn't really do it. It has no trust protection. Mm-hmm. And then they end up sued, or all these different scenarios, right? Like, probably know ton more scenarios than I do, but I'm just saying that there's so many of these fly-by-night guys that they look at the Trump estate and the Clinton estate and all these different people that they say, okay, well, we can come in and we're going to set up irrevocable trust for you, and we're going to have your trust own your business, and your business, it's going to own your business and a nonprofit. And if we can set this up right, you're only going to end up having to donate 3% every year and never have to pay another tax in your life. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I can take my taxes from 30% down to 3%. That's incredible.
Right.
Hey, let's do it. Right. So then they pay this guy to come in and set up this trust that is so convoluted, and like you don't even, and then they tell you that you can't even talk to the IRS about it. You have to talk to some other guy about it. And it's just this nightmare. Right. And that's the craziness of the internet right now, is that there's so many different so-called experts out there that are operating and doing things just because they can just grab your attention. Right. They're good marketers. They're not good business people. And something that we like to do different with our business is everyone inside of our business has owned a business. Right. So we've sat in the owner's seat. Whereas, a lot of these other programs out there, you can just go grab a book and buy the franchise or buy the certification, and then guess what? I'm a business coach, and I've never really even ran a business, and I'm just going to read out of this binder and tell you what to do. And I believe that it's imperative that somebody has sat in that seat, and then like people like me who have bought, owned, and scaled and sold a business, I've sat in your seat all the way through, and I know all the mistakes that I made when I was exiting my business. And that's one of the big reasons why I even became exit planner certified in the first place, is because I wanted to know what I didn't know. And I wanted to be able to bring that to other people. So when you look at it from the standpoint of like, hey, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. And really hiring a coach gives you that opportunity to see things that maybe you don't see, to be able to see around corners, to be able to move a little faster because we've been there, we've done that, we've made the mistakes, right? So like a parent figure almost. When you look at your parents are always trying to instill all the things that they did that screwed up on, and they don't want you to go through the same mistakes, right? And that's essentially what we want for our clients, is we want them to not go through the same mistakes, but also be able to build and put the right things in place to where the mistakes never even come up.
So, again, it's so interesting because your experience as a Scout Marine, right? You're out there, way ahead of the troops, and you're taking the flak, you're taking the initial hits, right? And then you're able to essentially communicate to the troops behind you, hey, here's what's going on up front, prepare yourself for it. And now you can enter the fight in a much better position than you would otherwise be able to if you didn't have the Scout Marines in front of you. And I think the same is true in businesses. So a few weeks ago, I had a guest on one of my other shows who he's a fellow of my vintage, mid-60s, started lots of businesses over his career, sold them, kind of like what you were saying, been through the whole process. And his number one message was, you need to have mentors if you want to be successful, right? Because they've been through it, they've done it, and they can help you identify the pitfalls so you don't fall into them, but you can make plans to avoid them. And I think what's so critical about exit planning when we're talking about a probate situation is that at this point, somebody key to the business is now dead. Right. So you can't turn to that person and say, hey, founder, what do you think about this? Because if he answers you got much bigger problems than the fact that you're taking over this business because evidently you're talking to ghosts. But I say that tongue in cheek, but you know, there's a certain amount of corporate knowledge lost. There's an experience gap now, and all of that needs to be figured out. And this, I think, too, goes back to what you were saying about recruiting. So, right, part of it, and I'd never really thought about this until you raised it. Part of effective um, exit planning or even business continuity from a probate standpoint is making sure that the recruiting that's gone on beforehand includes people who can take the reins and do what needs to be done according to the estate plan. And that's not necessarily everybody, who's in your business. That's somebody who has a particular set of knowledge. So I'm wondering, kind of, what do you think about those issues as I've sort of am I absorbing your lessons correctly, or where have I gotten off base?
Yeah, absolutely. So like when we're looking at, key man, you're losing knowledge, right? So what have we done to capture some of that knowledge base out of his head, right? Where's our documentation? What are some of the key proprietary things that maybe he only knew that we've captured to where we can continue to carry continuity through our business? The key man insurance, right? So like thinking through the process of like key man insurance, what do we have in place to be able to buy out this family in our operating agreement? What do we have in place to make sure that our business doesn't take a big hit by trying to buy out family or buy out different things that are in our operating agreement? How do we continue to recruit and keep the culture alive inside of our business? Our culture can't just be tied up in one person. It's got to be the whole part of the community, right? And that community movement is what attracts and repels the people from and to our business. So we need to make sure that we keep that continuity moving forward, and like you said, in the different estates and things like that, to be able to keep things moving in the right direction, to say, hey, we need to exit because that we don't have the next man up to come be the CEO, but we've got all the operational pieces. We need that visionary, that CEO. We need somebody to come in and take over this organization. And they need to come in and see that this business still operates, right? That they just need that visionary, that somebody who can see beyond the next step and see the next wall and the next obstacle and the next corners, and really start to process through and keep the business moving forward. So that helps with valuation, right? So like when we have these things in place, not only does it help us as an organization and with continuity in the organization when you go on vacation, but it also helps with the valuation of your business. This is the intangibles inside of your business, right? The human capital, the structural capital. You've got all these different things in there that will increase your multiples inside of your business. Where if everything's tied up with just you, Kevin, and you're going to sell the business, it's worth nothing without you. And you get tied up in these earnouts where they sell you this vision. They bring in this salesperson that comes in and sells you the vision that, hey, you know what? We're going to give you $1 million up front, but if we can do this, we're going to pay you this at the end. And people don't realize that they just get sold on the vision. They don't realize that only 1 in 4 payouts actually happen. These people will leverage their entire life of building this business for this potential earnout that they're never going to get. So my job is to come in and solidify and make sure that, hey, when somebody comes in and they make you an offer, you're up and out then. Like you're not sitting on an earnout. You're getting maximum value at the beginning, and you're the one who's in control of that.
So we're going to take another commercial break here, another sponsor break, I should say, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm Kevin Bemmel. I'm the host of Trust and Estates Weekly, and my guest is Deric Keller. And Deric is a business coach and strategy expert, and we've been talking about how to plan an exit strategy for a business, especially for one that's going through probate. We've talked about a number of issues. Deric, I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago that really caught my attention. I think you are the first person in 6 years of doing these shows to have brought this up, and I think it's probably because of your Marine Corps background. um, and it is that when we think about recruiting the right people into our business, whether it's for business continuity or for being able to prepare the business for sale or whatever, we want to attract the right people for sure. Of course we do, right? But you said something else right then that I think is fascinating, and that is we also want to essentially push away the wrong people. And those two actually go hand in glove, and the tendency, I think, is the thing of everybody is potentially the right fit for my business. No, I don't think that's true. I
No.
think we actually probably most people are not the right fit for my business. And so part of the recruitment process is essentially saying to the people who aren't the right fit, you're not the right fit. So, please don't waste your time and mine by applying here. This is not where you need to be. Go look for an opportunity that aligns with who you are and what you want. And I'm would you expand on that a little bit? Because again, you're the first person who's ever, I think, looked at recruiting in kind of both of its facets.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess it does come from the Marine Corps, the few, the proud, right? Like, there's when you step up and see the Marines standing there in their dress blues, there's certain people that are going to look at that and say, "There's no way. There's no way I could have that level of discipline," right? Or, when you see the people at Arlington Cemetery or at the what's that big wall? Gosh dang it! Why am I drawing blank? The Tomb of the Unknown, or the
To the unknown soldier, or
so, like, you've got them. They're doing a certain amount of paces back and forth, and there's Army, Marines. There's a little bit of everybody involved in that, and it's. But that's like a huge honor to be a part of that. And when you go do them things, like there's a certain level of discipline, a certain level of operating that not just everyone can do that, and not everyone's attracted to that. And somebody with ADHD that's all over the place and bouncing off the walls just can't find that center to be able to stand and be in a certain area, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember being a young kid, and I'd sit at the table and I'd shake my leg, right? And I still know a lot of people that do that, and it's kind of a nervous tick or a nervous habit or whatever. But one of my drill instructors in boot camp had come up to me and said, "That's a sign of weakness and a sign of uncertainty. You need to stand in your certainty and be, just be here."
Mm-hmm.
It was like this light switch went off in my head, and I rarely do it to this point. Like, unless I'm extremely bored, there's nothing going on, and then I'll find my leg twitching. But like that's the level of operation that you want. Like when you look at your business, what is the standard that you set? What is the lowest bar that you're willing to accept? Right? Because if we're just accepting anybody, then we have zero culture. We're and it's kind of contradict. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it's saying, like, a lot of times people say, well, we need to have our level of training to where even a 5-year-old could understand it. And I find myself saying that. And that it's great because we want to simplify and make it easy for people to understand. But we also want to make sure that the right people understand, because we're not McDonald's, right? As much as we want a franchise and whatever, like even McDonald's has a certain standard of employee that they'll allow, right? So like, what's your standard? What's your level of employee that you're willing to accept? What's the lowest bar? In the Marine Corps, we have an 80% bar, right? I think it's similar in the Navy. If you can't pass a test at 80% or better, it's anything less than 80% is failing.
Right.
I wish that they had that in like doctorates and things like that, because I don't want the D surgeon working on me.
I got to tell you a funny story, because Navy Week happened not too long ago here in LA, the end of May, and as part of the Beverly Hills Navy League, a colleague of mine and I went to sort of check it out, and we were talking with another fellow, and out of the corner of my eye, I happened to notice a Marine kind of standing maybe about 10 feet from me, and I walked over toward him, and I saw he was a Marine Corps Sergeant Major. Now, if the average Marine is, or I mean, if the typical, not the average Marine, but if a regular Marine, enlisted guy is, 80%, Sergeant Major is like, 99% and above, right? Yes. And he was just an incredibly impressive individual. So I talked with him for a little while, and then I asked him if he would come, and I introduce him to my my friends that were there, and typical Sergeant Major, yeah, happy to, kind of thing. And so we ended up talking with him for probably about 45 minutes. And at one point in the conversation, we got on, it was something about some kind of business development thing that we were talking. And he said, he said, I really have to get more disciplined. I find that, because he was about a year and a half away from retirement. He says, as I think about retiring and going to the civilian world, I realize I'm really going to have to buckle down and get disciplined. And my two friends, who one of them has never served in the military, he's like, it just blew the statement just blew his mind. I mean, he's looking at perhaps the most squared away human being he's ever seen, right? And the Sergeant Major's statement is, I have to be more disciplined. This I will tell you, no matter what he does in civilian life, right? An attitude like that, he's going to be successful, right?
Well, right. But that's also one of the pitfalls that we have coming out of the Marine Corps, is that we're too disciplined. And we have this this certain way of operating that we don't accept the below standard around us, right? So we're always trying to elevate the people around us. We're always trying to push the people to do more, and some people don't like that, right? So we end up in a lot of scenarios where people are intimidated by us, or that we're too squared away, and they want a little bit of slop, and they want a little bit of loosey goosey, right? But they don't realize that we just have our own way of doing it.
So for the business owner, and going back more directly to the issues of exit planning, how does a business owner start identifying the key vulnerabilities of his business, so he can start dealing with some of these issues while there's still time to deal with them, right? I think the hardest thing is for us to look at ourselves appropriately critically, right? Not being too harsh, not being too light on ourselves, and our businesses in many ways are extensions of ourselves. So how do we accurately or objectively identify those key vulnerabilities, so that we can develop an exit plan that's actually going to, or that has a very high chance that it's going to work?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of research out there that you could always do, and do it yourself. Again, it just takes longer. I would say that the best thing to do is to hire a coach, and or even just do an assessment. Right? I have so many different assessments that I'll send people for free, just to give them an initial look into their business and where they're at. Right? There's different downturn assessments. There's different strength of your business assessments. There's exit assessments, like, hey, am I even close to ready? Like, here's the key questions, and this is, am I a 1 or am I a 5, right? And you just you grade yourself on that curve, and really making sure, honing in, like being honest, right? The first step is really being truthful with yourself, because a lot of us are really good liars to ourselves, and we really want to tell ourselves how awesome we are, and in reality we've got some holes, right? So we have to be honest with ourselves, and answer these surveys or these assessments in an honest manner, so that when we go through and really look at the different questions that are out there, we get exposed, right? The best thing that you could do for yourself is expose yourself. And that's probably the best advice that I could give you, is just be honest and expose yourself, because it just brings up, all it is opportunity, right? Like, I sit inside of these businesses a lot of times. One of the businesses that I scaled from 3 to 12 million over in a year. We went in and we started talking about different things, and we realized very quickly that he was just balancing his entire business off of his checkbook. He was just looking at his balance in his checkbook, and, okay, I can spend money this month, right? And he couldn't figure out why he couldn't scale. And as we brought in a fractional CFO and really got honed into the numbers and got things cleaned up, he started to see things from a different angle, and started to operate from that different perspective. And you don't know what you don't know,
right?
So it's really that the assessments really drive a lot of clarity, but also the coach's perspective of reviewing that survey with you, and asking you the challenging questions, and pushing to make sure that, hey, you do have somebody in this scenario to help you see things from a different angle, because he would have never known any better of hey, you know what, this is I got a bookkeeper that I pay over here that gives me a P&L every quarter, and I've got my wife who tells me what's in the checking account. It's simple. Like, and for him to see things from these different angles, and be able to operate and move and invest and know what budget he's on, has given him the ability for us to be able to scale to 12 million, and we'll do 15 this year. So it's
So okay, so now let's sort of advance the process and say, okay, now I've been through the assessment, I've found the vulnerabilities, we've kind of plugged them all or made plans for them, and now I have my exit plan. Okay. Kind of, now what? I mean, I put it on the shelf, and okay, task done, right?
Nice.
Or do I need a checkup every whatever the period of what happens after that?
Yeah, so it's really, we have in our process, the way that we do is at the end of every 90 days, we're looking at, okay, are we keeping or selling? Like, are we keeping and continuing to grow, or are we selling? Like, are we set up to sell? And that's all going to be based on, your wealth gap. There's a wealth gap of, like, hey, this is what I need to be able to retire. And then your value gap, right? So this is what our business is currently worth. This is the valuation, and this is where we want to grow. But I would say at least every year, I would want to look at, the different nuances. If there's different laws, if there's new with every administration, there's something new that comes up that could be a new benefit, or something that kind of canceled out from your other one, some protection that's no longer there that we thought was there, right? I mean, every administration has something that they bring to the table, and there's good and bad in every one of them, right?
Right.
So I mean, it just depends on who that candidate is catering to or conform to, right? Like, where did they come from? How did they operate? What are the things that are going to help benefit me as a business owner? What's going to help, the W-2 employee? It just depends on what the administration's
Right.
doing.
And two, state by state. I mean, here in California, every year, every 6 months, sometimes, there's something new happening that, can significantly affect a business, and it's got to be dealt with. So so it sounds like, kind of, do at least a basic review every year, or when there's something very significant that is potentially impacting the business, it's probably time to go back to that plan, take a look at it, and potentially, engage with your professionals in taking a look if anything needs to be changed, either in the business then or for the exit plan itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of things that come up are a lot of business owners think that they're just going to transfer off to one of their kids, right? And this is my legacy. I've been building this my whole life. It's my legacy, and I want it to carry on. I want it to keep going. And a lot of these kids don't want it. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want they don't want anything to do with it, especially this so not the newest. What's the youngest? Is it Z?
I think it's Z, yeah.
So the Zs are really wanting to get back into the entrepreneurial spirit. Gen Xers are but the millennial generation, for some reason, really wants to push off responsibility, doesn't like, they have this fear of negotiation, of conflict. They have all these different fears that are built into them for some reason. I don't know why, but essentially, you get a lot of these millennials that don't want to take over the business. Mm-hmm. And even though they've grown up in the business and they know the business like the back of their hand, they're a part of the culture, all of a sudden it comes time to take it over, and they're like, nope, sell it. Right. And a lot of the parents are like devastated because they're like, I built this and da 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 da. And so looking at the different options for exit planning, so many people look at exiting as just a third party exit. I'm going to sell it to some third party. Right. There's so many different options out there anymore. They're with the private equity firms and the VC firms that'll come in and just buy a portion of the business and bring in some management and keep you on as an owner. And then there's, the ESOPs, the different employee owned options. There's management buyout. There's so many different options. There's like 7 different ways to exit your business, and people only think of one. Right. 1 or 2. They only think of, I'm going to transfer it to my kid, or I'm going to sell it to somebody.
Right.
But like, really educating and giving them the options that are out there so that they can see things from all angles and make a decision that's best for not only them, but a lot of these guys, their whole identity is tied up in this business and who they are and the legacy that's going to be passed on. They say that, like, it's some huge number. It's like 80 or 90% of people who exit their business regret it within the first year, right? Because they don't have a plan. They don't have any purpose after the business. They don't have any identity after the business. Their whole identity is tied up in this thing. So we want to look at things and prepare for that exit, to where, hey, you know what? I have this big heart project that I'm working on, whether it's I'm going to go start a 501c3, or I'm going to take some of the proceeds and get involved with, Allied Forces Foundation, or the SOTA Foundation, the Special Operations Transition Fund, or like all these different all these different things that really tug on your heartstrings, right?
Mhm.
Things that really give you purpose and make you want to continue to drive forward.
Right.
And that's one of the key things in an exit, is making sure that you have an identity afterwards, that your identity isn't that.
Mhm.
And so there's that, and then there's, like I said, the people that are so tied to that legacy and tied to the business, that they need it to succeed after them. So a lot of times the best option for that is an ESOP or a management buyout, to where that culture stays and continues to maintain. And there's options. So, like, so many times people look at the management buyout option or the ESOP option. They're like, well, my employees don't have the money to buy in, or my managers don't have the money to buy in. And that's again where they don't know the nuances of private equity and ESOPs and trust and trustees. Like, when you have an ESOP, you have the trust and the trustees that come in and do that and build that. So, like, again, leaning back into you guys and your trust in the state, right? Like, you have a fiduciary that's in there, that's the manager of the estate and helping with that ESOP. And there's so many different loans and SBAs and everything that we can work from so many different angles that you didn't even think were possible, that could get you out early, or even get you a partial buyout and get your people bought in. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time. So, but I mean, it's a fascinating discussion, and like you said, there's so much in this arena. So, I'm going to make sure that your contact information is in the show notes. You were kind enough to mention that you have some assessments that you'd be happy to send to people. So this is the time when I give the shameless plug for my guests, because they're all too modest to do so. But you can see, first of all, you can feel Deric's passion for what he does when he talks. But you can also see that he knows this subject in tremendous depth, and so I can't encourage you strongly enough. If you have questions about business exit planning, succession planning, what you're going to do with your business as part of your estate plan, or what your more importantly, maybe what your clients are going to do, get in touch with Deric, and he can help you. He can be a part of the estate planning team that can really take an estate plan from here way up to here. I think I've noticed in my own practice, too often people are content to, well, I've got my estate plan. But if they're well advised, they can really kick it up several levels, and then it will work much better for all concerned. So Deric, first of all, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's always a truth. Even though I was a Navy chaplain, my heart is my first billet was with the Marine Corps. Always have a special place in my heart for Marine Corps veterans, and so just on that issue alone, it was great. It was great talking with you. So.
Yeah, being a Navy chaplain, man, that's huge, because the Marine Corps, there's two big things we don't have, and that's docs and Navy chaplains. So
Right.
you get both of them from the Navy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll have you hang tight here for a minute. I do a quick wrap up. So tomorrow at 10 a.m. is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time. So I hope you join me for that. And then on Wednesday, also at 10 a.m. Pacific time, is my show, People Making Money. And so I hope you'll tune in again later in the week. And then, of course, a week from today, I'll be back for the next edition of Trust and Estates Weekly. So again, first of all, Deric, thank you so much for being on the show. For all of you watching, thank you so much for watching. And signing off, as I always do, You know it's coming, right? Marie, darling, you are my belle. Courage at all times, my friends.